Close your eyes and imagine standing before a waterfall. Feel the cool mist on your face. Hear the eternal song of falling water. Tonight, we'll journey through the world of waterfalls together, discovering their secrets as you drift into peaceful sleep. Let's begin at the very beginning, with a single drop of water. A waterfall is born when water flows over a vertical drop in a riverbed or stream. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Yet within that simplicity lies endless complexity. The word itself comes from the Old English water and felon, meaning exactly what it describes: water that falls. Sometimes the most beautiful things need no elaborate names. As you breathe slowly and deeply, consider this. There are waterfalls on every continent on Earth, except Antarctica's interior, though even that frozen land has seasonal meltwater falls along its edges. From the tropical rain forests to the temperate woodlands, from desert canyons to Arctic cliffs, water finds its way to fall. It's one of nature's most universal artworks, painted again and again across our planet. The tallest waterfall in the world reaches an almost unimaginable height. Angel Falls in Venezuela plunges 979 meters, that's 3,212 feet, from the edge of the Oyan Tepui Mountain. Imagine water beginning its journey at the top of three Empire State Buildings stacked upon each other, falling through clouds and mist before finally reaching the river below. The falls were named after Jimmy Angel, an American aviator who was the first to fly over them in 1933, though the local Pemon people had known of these falls for generations, calling them Karapakupai Meru, meaning waterfall of the deepest place. Waterfalls create their own weather. As you settle deeper into relaxation, picture this. The force of water striking the pool below sends millions of tiny droplets into the air, creating a permanent mist that surrounds the falls like a veil. This spray zone can extend hundreds of feet from larger waterfalls, creating a unique microclimate where the air is cooler, more humid, and filled with negative ions. These negative ions are oxygen atoms charged with an extra electron, and many people report feeling more refreshed and peaceful near waterfalls, perhaps explaining why you find their sound so soothing as you prepare for sleep. The shape of a waterfall has a name, a classification. Scientists and waterfall enthusiasts recognize at least 10 distinct types. There are plunge waterfalls where water falls vertically and loses contact with the bedrock. There are horsetail falls, maintaining contact with the rock as they descend. Cascade waterfalls tumble down a series of rock steps, while block waterfalls descend from a wide stream or river. Each shape tells a story of the rock beneath, the volume of water above, and the patient work of erosion over time. The sound you find so calming, that rushing, constant whisper, is actually a complex symphony. Water falling creates what's called white noise, a sound that contains every frequency within the range of human hearing, all at equal intensity. This masks other sounds that might disturb your sleep, sudden noises that would normally alert your ancient brain to potential danger. The waterfall's voice tells your mind that all is well, all is constant, all is safe. You can let go. Waterfalls are never permanent, though they may seem eternal to us. They are constantly moving upstream, carving their way backwards through the landscape. This process, called headward erosion, happens because the falling water undermines the rock at the base of the falls, causing the harder rock above to collapse. Some waterfalls retreat upstream at a rate of several feet per year, while others move only inches per century. Niagara Falls, one of the world's most famous waterfalls, has moved approximately 7 miles upstream over the past 12,500 years. In your lifetime, in 1,000 lifetimes, a waterfall may seem unchanging, but it is always dancing slowly backwards, reshaping the land. The most powerful waterfall on Earth isn't the tallest. That distinction belongs to Iguazu Falls, spanning the border between Argentina and Brazil. During peak flow, Iguazu releases 450,000 cubic feet of water per second over its 275 individual cascades. Imagine the weight of that water, the force of it, enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool in less than 2 seconds. Eleanor Roosevelt, upon seeing Iguazu Falls, reportedly said, "Poor Niagara," understanding that while size isn't everything, sometimes it certainly is something magnificent. As these first minutes of our journey together draw to a close, rest in this knowledge: waterfalls have witnessed the passage of time in ways we cannot fathom. They have fallen while dinosaurs walked below them, while glaciers advanced and retreated, while humans emerged and built civilizations. And they will continue falling long after we're gone, singing their ancient song to whoever is there to listen. Let that constancy comfort you now. Like the waterfall, you too are part of something eternal, something that flows and falls and rises again. Breathe with the rhythm of falling water, in and out, steady as a stream. We continue our gentle journey now, deeper into the world of falling water. Behind many waterfalls lies a secret chamber, a hidden room between the rock and the rushing water. These spaces exist because waterfalls often form where soft rock lies beneath harder rock. The water erodes the softer layer more quickly, carving out a hollow space, an alcove where you can stand and watch the world through a curtain of water. These recesses are called waterfall shelters, and humans have sought them out for thousands of years, first as homes, then as places of refuge, and now as destinations for those seeking wonder. Imagine standing in that cool darkness, the waterfall a living wall before you, transforming sunlight into liquid silver. Water doesn't fall at the same speed everywhere on a waterfall. As you sink deeper into comfort, consider this elegant complexity. Water at the center of the flow falls faster than water at the edges, where friction with rock and air slows its descent. Water at the top of a tall waterfall can reach speeds of over 100 miles per hour by the time it reaches the bottom, faster than cars on a highway, faster than most birds can fly. Yet this same water started its journey as a gentle flow, patient and slow, proving that transformation happens when we surrender to gravity, to the natural pull of things. The pool at the base of a waterfall has a special name. It's called a plunge pool, and it forms from the constant percussion of falling water striking the riverbed below. Over centuries and millennia, this relentless drumming excavates the rock, creating pools that can be dozens of feet deep, sometimes deeper than the waterfall is tall. These pools become worlds unto themselves, often filled with unique species of fish and aquatic life that thrive in the highly oxygenated, churning water. The plunge pool is both an ending and a beginning, where the fall concludes, and where the river begins anew its journey onward. Some waterfalls freeze in winter, but they never truly stop flowing. Even when the surface ice creates spectacular columns and formations, water continues to flow behind and beneath the frozen facade. This creates ice structures of breathtaking complexity, hollow tubes and chambers, frozen spray that builds outward like crystalline branches, caves of ice that glow blue in the winter light. Fang Mountain in Colorado and Helm Ken Falls in Canada become winter playgrounds for ice climbers who ascend these temporary sculptures, knowing that come spring, the ice will melt and the waterfall will shake off its frozen coat like an animal emerging from hibernation. Rainbows are waterfalls' constant companions. When sunlight enters the mist surrounding a waterfall, it refracts through millions of water droplets, splitting into its component colors. The angle must be just right, approximately 42 degrees between the sun, the droplets, and your eye. This is why you often see rainbows in waterfall spray in the late afternoon, when the sun is lower in the sky. Some waterfalls, blessed with consistent mist and favorable angles, display rainbows nearly every sunny day. These are not separate phenomena, the waterfall and the rainbow, but rather a single collaboration between water, light, and physics, a partnership that has existed since the first waterfall caught the first sunlight on our ancient Earth. The loudest sound at a waterfall isn't always the water hitting the pool below. It's often the sound of air. As water plunges, it pulls air down with it, creating bubbles that implode underwater with tiny shock waves. Millions of these microscopic collapses happen every second, creating a roar that can be heard miles away from the largest cataracts. Victoria Falls, on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe, produces a sound so thunderous that the local name for it is Mosi Oatunya, the smoke that thunders. The spray from Victoria Falls can rise over 1,000 feet into the air, visible from 12 miles away, a perpetual storm cloud born from falling water. Waterfalls play a crucial role in the health of rivers and the ecosystems they support. As water tumbles and churns, it absorbs oxygen from the air, becoming saturated with this life-giving gas. This process, called aeration, revitalizes the river, making it capable of supporting fish and other aquatic organisms that might not survive in slower, less oxygenated water. A river that flows through multiple waterfalls is often far healthier than one that meanders gently across flat land. The falls are like the lungs of the river, breathing in deeply, infusing the water with the breath of life before sending it onward. Some waterfalls flow in reverse. This phenomenon, rare and magical, occurs when powerful winds blow upward along cliff faces, catching the falling water and sending it skyward instead. Waipuhia Falls in Hawaii, sometimes called upside-down waterfall, displays this behavior during strong trade winds. The water appears to defy gravity itself, flowing upward in defiant streams before being caught by the wind and scattered as mist. It's a reminder that even the most fundamental forces, gravity, the weight of water, can be overcome when other forces align just right. Let yourself be like water now. You've been falling gently through these facts, these stories, and perhaps you feel lighter now, more liquid, less solid. That's the way toward sleep, a loosening, a flowing, a gentle surrender to the pull of rest. The waterfall doesn't fight its nature. It doesn't resist the cliff edge or hesitate at the precipice. It simply continues being what it is, and in that continuation it becomes something beautiful. You too can stop resisting, stop holding yourself rigid against the day. You can flow now, fall gently into sleep, knowing that tomorrow you'll gather yourself again and continue your journey, just as the river does below the falls. Breathe with the rhythm of mist rising, slow and slower still, soft as spray. As you rest deeper now, let's wander to where waterfalls meet the sea. There are places on Earth where waterfalls plunge directly into the ocean, creating a meeting of fresh water and salt water, of river and tide. These rare formations, called coastal waterfalls or tide fall waterfalls, exist in only a handful of locations worldwide. McWay Falls in California drops 80 feet onto a beach before its water mingles with the Pacific. In the Faroe Islands, dramatic cliffs send multiple streams tumbling into the North Atlantic, the waterfalls appearing and disappearing with the rain, ephemeral as dreams. These boundary places remind us that nothing exists in isolation. Every ending flows into a new beginning. Every waterfall eventually finds the sea. Ancient peoples recognized waterfalls as sacred spaces, thin places where the physical and spiritual worlds seemed closer. The perpetual motion, the constant sound, the way waterfalls seem to exist outside of time, these qualities made them natural temples. The Shinto religion in Japan recognizes certain waterfalls as yorishiro, places where spirits dwell, and practitioners still perform misogi, a ritual purification under the icy cascade of waterfall water. To stand beneath falling water, they believe, is to be cleansed, not just of physical dirt but of spiritual impurities, negative energy washed away by the eternal flow. Perhaps this is why the sound brings you peace now, some ancient recognition in your bones that water falling is water healing. Waterfalls create their own forests. The constant mist surrounding a waterfall supports unique plant communities that couldn't survive just a short distance away. Mosses thrive in this perpetual dampness, painting the rocks around waterfalls in emerald and jade. Ferns unfurl their delicate fronds in the spray zone, their leaves designed to capture moisture from the air itself. These waterfall gardens, lush and primordial, are often home to species found nowhere else. plants that have adapted specifically to life in the mist, in the cool shadows, in the constant whisper of falling water. They are kingdoms unto themselves, small Edens created by nothing more than water obeying gravity. The study of waterfalls has its own scientific name. It's called hydrodynamics when studying the physics of the falling water itself, but those who study waterfalls specifically, cataloging them, measuring them, understanding their formation and their fate, sometimes call themselves waterfall enthusiasts or simply waterfalling when they travel to see them. There is no formal term for the love of waterfalls, though perhaps there should be. Perhaps you understand this unnamed devotion, lying here in the dark, choosing to spend these moments before sleep in their company, letting their stories wash over you like mist. Some waterfalls are seasonal, appearing only during certain times of year. Phantom waterfalls, they're sometimes called present during spring snow melt or after heavy rains, then vanishing when the water source runs dry, leaving only a stained rock face as evidence of their temporary existence. Yosemite National Park in California hosts several of these ephemeral falls. Horsedale Fall, when it flows at all, becomes famous each February when the setting sun illuminates it at just the right angle, making the water appear to be molten lava or liquid fire pouring down the granite face. For a few minutes, for a few days of the year, if conditions align, this small seasonal waterfall becomes a river of gold. Then it fades, the sun moves on, and sometimes the waterfall itself disappears until the next year's melt. Underground waterfalls exist in caves around the world, hidden from sunlight, falling through darkness into subterranean pools. The tallest known underground waterfall is Vertiglavica in Slovenia, plunging over 600 feet inside a cave system accessible only to experienced cavers. These hidden cataracts have been falling in absolute darkness for millennia, their sound echoing through stone chambers where no human ear has ever listened. They are falling still, even now as you rest, water finding its way down through the bedrock, carving channels through the planet's bones, patient and persistent and utterly alone. Waterfalls can be created by humans, but they lack something ineffable that natural falls possess. Architects and engineers design waterfalls for parks and buildings, calculating flow rates and constructing perfect geometries, but these artificial cascades don't quite capture the magic. Perhaps it's because natural waterfalls are imperfect, changing with the seasons, never falling quite the same way twice. Or perhaps it's simply that we recognize, on some deep level, the difference between something built and something born, something designed, and something that simply grew because the water found a cliff and gravity pulled it down. The oldest waterfalls on Earth may be hundreds of millions of years old, though it's nearly impossible to date them precisely. As continents shifted and rose, as mountains formed and eroded, water found edges and began to fall. Some waterfalls in ancient, stable landscapes like Australia or Africa might have been falling since the age of dinosaurs, their positions relative to the landscape essentially unchanged for epochs beyond human comprehension. They have witnessed the entire story of complex life on Earth, falling steadily through ice ages and warm periods, through extinctions and renewals, through the slow, patient work of evolution. They connect us to deep time, to the long story of this planet, reminding us that we are just one moment in a much longer tale. And you are here now in your own moment, in your own small pocket of time, listening to stories about water falling. The waterfalls don't know you exist, and yet somehow they've helped bring you here to this quiet place before sleep. The connection is real even if it's only in your mind, only in the peace you feel when you imagine standing before a waterfall, mist on your face, the eternal song in your ears. Let that peace deepen now. Let the waterfalls of the world fall in your imagination, their sound growing softer, more distant, like you're walking away from them into a quiet forest, into the gentle dark of rest. Breathe like water over stone, smooth, slow, soft. Settling deeper still, let us explore the waterfalls that exist in places you might never expect. Waterfalls flow on other worlds beyond Earth. On Saturn's moon Titan, scientists believe there are waterfalls made not of water, but of liquid methane and ethane, flowing in rivers and tumbling over cliffs in an alien landscape shrouded in orange haze. These falls would flow in slow motion due to Titan's low gravity and thick atmosphere, each droplet taking longer to fall than on Earth, drifting downward like a feather through honey. Even more remarkably, Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, may have waterfalls beneath its icy crust, where a subsurface ocean meets underwater cliffs in absolute darkness, water falling where no light has ever reached. The universe, it seems, loves waterfalls as much as we do, creating them wherever liquids and gravity and edges meet. The tallest waterfall in North America isn't where most people would guess. While Yosemite Falls is the most famous, Johannesburg Falls in Canada's British Columbia plunges an astounding 2,625 feet, though it flows only seasonally and remains remote and rarely visited. These hidden giants remind us that fame and magnitude don't always align, that some of the most spectacular places on Earth remain known only to those who seek them out with dedication. There's a comfort in that, knowing that wonders still exist beyond the well-worn paths, waiting quietly for those who need them. Waterfalls have inspired countless artists, writers, and composers throughout history. The Japanese artist Hokusai created the Waterfall of Amida, where the cascade forms a vertical line through the composition, a meditation on persistence and flow. Composer Ferd Grof included a waterfall movement in his Grand Canyon Suite, using orchestral sounds to evoke cascading water. The Romantic painters were particularly drawn to waterfalls, seeing in them symbols of nature's sublime power, both beautiful and terrifying, peaceful and overwhelming. These artists understood something you're feeling now, that waterfalls speak to something deep within us, something beyond words, a recognition of patterns and rhythms that existed long before we did. A waterfall's flow rate can vary dramatically throughout the year. During spring snow melt or after heavy rains, a waterfall might carry 100 times more water than during a dry summer or winter. Freeze. Niagara Falls, for example, can vary from about 50,000 cubic feet per second in low flow to over 200,000 cubic feet per second during peak runoff. This means the waterfall you visit in July might be a completely different experience than the one you'd encounter in May, not just the same place at different volumes, but fundamentally transformed, like meeting someone in different moods, different states of being. The waterfall is always itself, and yet never quite the same. Some of the world's most impressive waterfalls exist in clusters, creating amphitheaters of falling water. The Plitvice Lakes in Croatia feature 16 lakes connected by waterfalls and cascades, creating a staircase of turquoise pools and white water that descends through a forested canyon. Visitors walk on wooden boardwalks suspended just above the water, surrounded on all sides by falling water, mist, and the sound that you know so well now, that white noise that signals safety and constancy. These places seem almost too beautiful to be real, as if nature was showing off, demonstrating everything it could do with water and stone and time. Waterfalls create what geologists call a nick point, a sharp change in the slope of a river's profile. This nick point migrates upstream over time as the waterfall erodes, and it can reveal the geological history of an entire region. When scientists study a waterfall's nick point, they can sometimes determine when an ice age ended, when an earthquake occurred, or when sea levels changed, because each of these events affects where and how waterfalls form. The waterfall, in this way, is a bookmark in the Earth's story, marking a significant moment in geological time that continues to echo forward, the falls retreating upstream year by year, reading the landscape backward like a time traveler moving through ancient history. The widest waterfall in the world is Cone Falls in Laos, stretching over 35,000 feet, more than 6 miles across the Mekong River during the rainy season. It's not a single drop but a labyrinth of cascades, channels, and rapids spread across a vast floodplain studded with thousands of islands. During peak flow, an estimated 2.5 million gallons of water thunder through every second. To stand before it would be to witness not just a waterfall but an entire river system in cataract, the Mekong transforming from a navigable waterway into an impassable barrier of white water and roar. The local people have lived alongside this immensity for generations, their lives shaped by its power, their calendars marked by its moods. Animals have relationships with waterfalls that go beyond simply drinking from them. Salmon leap up waterfalls in their desperate upstream migration to spawn, their bodies designed for this impossible task, hurling themselves again and again against the falling water until they clear the obstacle or exhaust themselves trying. Birds called dippers actually walk underwater in the plunge pools of waterfalls, hunting for aquatic insects on the streambed, protected from predators by the churning water above them. Bats roost behind waterfalls in those hidden chambers, safe from weather and enemies. Each species has found its way to use these falling waters to make them home or highway or hunting ground. Your breathing has slowed now, hasn't it? Somewhere in these stories, these facts, these images of water falling in all the ways and places it can fall, you've begun to drift. The waterfalls are still falling, on Earth and on distant moons, in caves and canyons, in forests and at the edges of oceans. They'll keep falling whether you're awake to think of them or not. And that's all right. That's perfect, actually. Let them fall without you now. Let your mind release its grip on facts and stories and simply float, like mist above a plunge pool, like spray caught in a rainbow, like a sound that fades into silence and silence into sleep. Breathe like water returning to the sea, letting go, letting go. Drifting now, deeper into the mist, let us discover waterfalls that glow and shimmer in unexpected ways. Some waterfalls appear to glow with their own light at night, though it's not the water itself that shines. Bioluminescent organisms, tiny creatures that produce their own light through chemical reactions, sometimes live in the pools and streams around waterfalls. In places like Puerto Rico's El Yunque rainforest, the plunge pools can shimmer with blue-green light after dark, the disturbance of falling water triggering millions of microscopic organisms to illuminate like living stars. Imagine standing before such a waterfall in darkness, watching light bloom with each splash, each ripple, the water seeming to carry starlight from the sky down to the earth. Its magic rendered real through biology, mystery explained by science, yet somehow remaining mysterious still. The temperature of waterfall water tells a story about its source. Glacially fed waterfalls run extremely cold year-round, often just a few degrees above freezing even in summer. The water recently melted from ancient ice. Spring-fed waterfalls maintain a constant temperature regardless of season, emerging from underground aquifers at the temperature of the deep earth, cool but not frigid, often around 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Waterfalls fed by surface streams warm in summer and run cold in winter, breathing with the seasons, connected intimately to the air and sun. To place your hand in a waterfall's flow is to know immediately where that water began its journey, whether from glacier, spring, or sky. There are waterfalls that flow through and over human structures, absorbed into our architecture rather than displaced by it. In the village of Foraglio in Switzerland, a 360-foot waterfall flows directly through the center of the town, residents living on either side of the cascade, their lives accompanied by its constant voice. Some homes have been built so close that mist drifts through their windows on windy days. In Japan, the Nachai Falls, at 436 feet tall, has a shrine built into the cliff beside it, the sacred and the natural existing side by side, neither dominating the other. These places show a different way of being, with waterfalls not as destinations to visit, but as neighbors to live alongside, day after day, year after year. Waterfalls can create their own wind, air pushed and pulled by the movement of falling water. Near the base of large waterfalls, you can feel this manufactured breeze, cool and damp, flowing outward from the plunge pool as air is forced up and out by the constant percussion of falling water. In narrow canyons, this wind can be channeled and intensified, creating breezes strong enough to bend trees and scatter leaves. It's a reminder that waterfalls don't just affect water, they reshape the air around them, the temperature, the humidity, the very atmosphere becoming an extension of the falls itself. The color of waterfall water can reveal what the water has traveled through. Water flowing over limestone often appears turquoise or milky blue, filled with suspended calcium carbonate particles. Waterfalls in volcanic regions might run gray or even black, carrying mineral-rich sediment. In peat-rich areas, waterfalls can flow brown or tea-colored, stained by tannins from decomposing vegetation, the water the color of autumn though it might be spring. Havasu Falls in Arizona is famous for its stunning blue-green color, the result of high concentrations of calcium carbonate and magnesium that reflect light in particular ways. Each waterfall is tinted by its journey, carrying the signature of the land it has passed through. Some waterfalls reverse their flow with the tide. In coastal areas with extreme tidal ranges, the incoming tide can be strong enough to push back against waterfalls that feed directly into the sea, causing them to slow, stop, or even flow backward briefly. The Bay of Fundy in Canada, with the highest tides in the world up to 50 feet between high and low tide, hosts several small waterfalls that perform this daily dance, falling with gravity for half the day and pausing or reversing when the ocean pushes back. It's a conversation between waterfall and sea, between fresh water and salt, between the pull of the moon and the pull of the earth. Waterfalls were once major obstacles to river travel and trade, dividing navigable from non-navigable waters. Before roads and railways, rivers were highways, and waterfalls were barriers that required portaging, carrying boats and cargo overland around the falls to continue the journey. Cities grew at these portage sites: Louisville at the Falls of the Ohio, Minneapolis at St. Anthony Falls, Alexandria at the Falls of the Potomac. These waterfalls shaped human history, determining where settlements formed, where trade routes developed, where power both political and mechanical accumulated. The waterfalls didn't know they were making history, of course. They simply fell, and humans adapted, building their civilizations around these immovable facts of geography. In winter, the sound of a waterfall changes. Ice dampens and muffles the roar, the frozen edges acting as sound insulation, the reduced flow creating a different pitch and rhythm. A waterfall in full freeze becomes almost silent, just a whisper of water still moving beneath the ice, a secret kept by the frozen surface. Then in spring, the thaw begins. Ice cracks and crashes into the plunge pool below, the waterfall finding its voice again, growing louder day by day as warmth returns and the water flow increases. This annual cycle of voice and silence, roar and whisper, has repeated for as long as winters have been cold and springs have been warm. You're so quiet now, you're breathing slow and deep, almost in rhythm with an imagined waterfall that's steady in and out like water over a ledge, falling and always falling. The facts are fading into dreams, the stories, dissolving into mist. That's the way of things: solid becoming liquid, liquid becoming vapor, vapor rising and cooling and falling again as rain, the cycle continuing forever. Let yourself be part of that cycle. Let the day evaporate away. Let your thoughts condense and fall like water, down into the deep pool of sleep where everything is quiet and cool and dark. Rest now like a stone beneath a waterfall, ancient, unmoved, at peace. Half asleep now, half dreaming, let us wander to waterfalls at the edges of the world. The tallest single-drop waterfall is not Angel Falls, which cascades down multiple rock faces in its descent, but rather Kayatur Falls in Guyana, which plunges 741 feet in one unbroken vertical drop before hitting the pool below. This distinction matters to waterfall enthusiasts the difference between a waterfall that touches the cliff face on its way down and one that falls free through air, the water separating completely from the rock, diving through space like a slow-motion meteor. At Kayatur, the entire volume of the Pataro River launches itself into emptiness, 4 times the flow of Niagara compressed into a single column of falling water. The sound, they say, is like standing inside thunder. Waterfalls can sing different notes depending on the shape of the rock they fall over and the cavities they've carved behind them. The falling water acts like a flute or organ pipe, the resonating chambers behind the falls amplifying certain frequencies while dampening others. Some waterfalls produce low, rumbling bass notes that you feel in your chest more than hear with your ears. Others create higher-pitched tones, almost musical, especially when the flow is moderate and the conditions are just right. In Iceland, locals tell stories of hidden people, the Huldufólk, living behind waterfalls, and perhaps the music of the falls themselves gave rise to these legends, the water singing songs that sounded too beautiful, too intentional, to be merely accidental. Waterfalls were once believed to be portals to other realms. Celtic mythology spoke of waterfalls as doorways to the otherworld, places where the boundaries between realities grew thin. In Chinese folklore, the legend of the Dragon Gate tells of a waterfall on the Yellow River where carp swim upstream, and those few who succeed in leaping the falls transform into dragons. The message in the myth is about transformation through persistence, about how the journey through difficulty through the waterfall changes us into something we weren't before. You're on your own journey now, aren't you? Falling gently through these stories toward the other side of consciousness, toward the realm of sleep where different rules apply. The world's most powerful waterfall by energy output is neither the tallest nor the widest, but Bioma Falls in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Across a stretch of about 60 miles, the Congo River, the deepest river in the world, drops about 200 feet through a series of 7 cataracts. The sheer volume of water combined with the elevation change creates an estimated 100 million kilowatts of power, more energy than most of the world's largest dams produce. All that power dissipating into mist and sound and motion, unconverted, unharnessed, simply expressing itself because that's what water does when it falls from a height. Some waterfalls appear and disappear with the moon. Tidal waterfalls, different from the coastal falls we discussed earlier, occur when tidal currents flow through narrow channels with elevation changes. The reversing falls in New Brunswick, Canada, actually change direction 4 times a day as the Bay of Fundy's extreme tides push and pull the St. John River. At low tide, the river drops into the bay, creating upstream rapids and waterfalls. At high tide, the bay's water level rises higher than the river, and the flow reverses, water rushing backward through the gorge. Then twice a day, at the moment of slack tide, the water becomes calm and still, the falls temporarily ceasing to exist, a breathing space, a pause between opposing forces. Waterfalls have measurable health effects beyond the peaceful feelings they inspire. The negative ions produced by falling water have been studied for their potential benefits. Some research suggests they may increase serotonin levels, potentially improving mood and alertness. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, often includes time near waterfalls specifically for these effects. Whether it's the ions, the sound, the beauty, or simply the excuse to be present in nature, people consistently report feeling better after spending time near waterfalls. Your ancestors knew this without needing to measure ions or neurotransmitters. They simply knew that waterfalls were good places to be. The smallest officially named waterfall in the world is Mill Pond Falls in Oregon, with a drop of just 6 inches. That a 6-inch drop can be considered a waterfall might seem absurd, but it follows the technical definition: water flowing over a vertical drop in the riverbed. This tiny waterfall reminds us that grandeur isn't everything, that even the smallest cascade is part of the same family as Angel Falls and Niagara, following the same physics, moved by the same gravity, participating in the same eternal cycle. There's something democratic about waterfalls. They can be humble or magnificent, famous or unknown, yet all of them are doing the same essential thing: falling. Ancient peoples carved petroglyphs and pictographs near waterfalls, marking these places as significant long before written language existed. At Athabasca Falls in Canada, at various waterfalls throughout the American Southwest, in Australia near countless cascades, we find rock art depicting humans, animals, symbols whose meanings we can only guess at. Were they marking sacred sites, recording stories, celebrating the waterfall itself? We don't know, but we know this. Thousands of years ago, people stood where waterfalls fell and felt compelled to leave something of themselves behind, to say, "I was here, this mattered, remember this place." The waterfalls are still falling. The art remains. The meaning echoes forward through time to you, lying here in the dark, thinking about water and stone and the marks we leave. Your thoughts are like that, now half-formed, flickering, appearing and disappearing like the ephemeral waterfalls that come and go with the seasons. That's all right. You don't need to hold on to them. Let them fall away like water over a ledge, each thought dropping into darkness, into the soft pool of sleep that's been waiting for you all along. The waterfalls don't need you to think about them anymore tonight. They'll keep falling. They've been falling for millions of years. They can fall without you for a while. Rest, let go, fall softly now, down, down into dreams. Nearly dreaming now, floating in that space between waking and sleep. Let us visit waterfalls that exist at the very edges of possibility. There are waterfalls beneath the ocean, massive underwater cascades where dense, cold water sinks beneath warmer water, creating falls far larger than any on land. The Denmark Strait Cataract between Greenland and Iceland plunges more than 11,500 feet over 2 miles, making it more than 3 times taller than Angel Falls. It carries an estimated 175 million cubic feet of water per second, 2,000 times the flow of Niagara. You cannot see this waterfall, cannot hear it, cannot stand before it in wonder, yet it falls continuously in the deep darkness of the ocean, a giant invisible to us, shaping ocean currents that affect the entire planet's climate. Some of the most magnificent things in the world happen where no one watches. Waterfalls can create their own ecosystems that exist nowhere else on Earth. Behind Narada Falls in Washington, scientists discovered a species of moss that grows only in that specific environment, adapted to the exact combination of mist, light, and temperature found behind that particular waterfall. When you realize that falls around the world likely harbor their own unique species, insects, plants, even bacteria that exist in those precise conditions, and nowhere else, you begin to understand that each waterfall is not just a geological feature but an entire world, a universe unto itself containing life found nowhere else in all of existence. The concept of a lost waterfall haunts explorers and geographers. There are waterfalls reported by early explorers, marked on old maps, described in journals, that have never been found again. Whether they vanished due to geological changes, whether they were misdescribed or mislocated, or whether they wait still in remote corners of rain forest or mountain range, undiscovered or simply forgotten, no one knows. In the Amazon basin, in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, in unnamed gorges of Central Africa, there may be waterfalls that haven't been seen by outsiders in decades or perhaps ever. The world still holds secrets, still keeps some of its beauty to itself. Waterfalls influence local weather patterns in measurable ways. The cooling effect of evaporation and the moisture added to the air can create microclimates extending miles from large waterfalls. During cold winters, some waterfalls produce so much mist that it freezes on contact with trees and rock, creating massive ice formations called rime ice that can grow several feet thick. The vegetation around these falls becomes encased in crystalline armor, entire forests transformed into ice sculptures by the waterfall's breath. When spring comes and the ice melts, the landscape is revealed unchanged beneath its temporary shell, patient and enduring. There are waterfalls that flow upward more consistently than those rare wind-blown reversals. At Blood Falls in Antarctica, iron-rich water flows from beneath Taylor Glacier, the iron oxidizing upon contact with air and turning the water deep red, like blood staining the white ice. But the remarkable thing is that this water is emerging from a lake trapped beneath the glacier for potentially 2 million years, a body of water that has never seen sunlight, containing life forms that have evolved in complete isolation. When this water flows out and freezes into red icicles and fans across the ice, it's like the ancient past reaching up into the present, a waterfall flowing from one age into another. Some waterfalls can be heard before they're seen, the sound traveling farther than the sight. In dense forest or deep canyons, you might walk for an hour with the roar of a waterfall growing gradually louder, the anticipation building, the sound a promise of what's to come. The acoustics of the landscape channel and amplify the sound, bouncing it off rock walls, funneling it down valleys. To follow a waterfall by sound alone, letting it guide you through wilderness, is to trust in something you haven't yet seen, to have faith that the promise will be kept. And it always is. Eventually the sound leads you around a bend or through a clearing, and there it is, the waterfall you've been hearing, finally revealed. Waterfalls were essential to early industrialization, providing power for mills and factories long before electricity existed. The water wheel, turned by falling water, was one of humanity's first engines, grinding grain, sawing wood, powering looms. Entire towns were built around waterfalls because of this power. Paterson, New Jersey, grew around the Great Falls of the Passaic River specifically because Alexander Hamilton recognized the potential for industry there. The falls turned the wheels that made the cloth, forged the steel, built the machines that built America. Now most of these mills are silent, the water wheels still or removed, but the waterfalls continue falling, their power unexpressed but undiminished, ready for whoever needs them next. The sound of a waterfall can mask other sounds so completely that waterfalls have been used throughout history as places to have private conversations, the roar ensuring that no one else could overhear. Spies met near waterfalls. Lovers spoke secrets there. Leaders made decisions beside them, knowing their words would go no farther than the person standing next to them. Even today, when we have rooms that can be electronically shielded and phones that can be encrypted, there's something appealing about the old way. Standing near falling water, speaking truth that's immediately drowned in white noise. The waterfall keeping your secrets safe simply by being louder than your voice. You're barely here now, aren't you? Your awareness drifting like mist, dispersing into the air, becoming part of everything and nothing at once. The waterfall facts have become a lullaby, the information dissolving into pure sound, pure rhythm, words you can't quite hold onto anymore because you're letting go of the need to hold onto anything at all. That's right, that's perfect. Let the waterfalls fall without you. Let the world continue spinning while you rest. Everything will still be here when you wake, the waterfalls, the facts, the wonder. But for now, for these soft, dark hours, you can release it all. Falling, falling, soft as mist, quiet as snow, gone. Drifting deeper, barely tethered to waking now, let us visit the waterfalls that exist in the spaces between. Some waterfalls flow only once every few years, or even once in a decade. In the Australian outback, ephemeral waterfalls appear during rare heavy rains, transforming dry rock faces into cascades for a few hours or days before vanishing again. Local Aboriginal peoples have known of these ghost falls for thousands of years, visiting them when the rare rains come, celebrating the temporary abundance of water in a land defined by its absence. To witness one of these waterfalls is to be present for something fleeting and precious, a reminder that not all beauty is meant to last, that impermanence is its own kind of perfection. Just like this moment now, just like every moment here briefly, then gone, and that's exactly as it should be. Waterfalls have been portrayed on currency around the world, a testament to how cultures value these natural features. Victoria Falls appears on Zimbabwean money. Niagara Falls graced Canadian currency. Iceland has featured numerous waterfalls on its krona notes and coins. When a nation chooses what to put on its money, the images that will pass through millions of hands, that represent the country to the world, and they choose a waterfall, they're saying something about what they hold sacred, what they consider worth preserving, worth celebrating. Money flows through economies like water through rivers, and perhaps that's why the pairing feels so natural, so right. The plunge pools of waterfalls can be hundreds of feet deep, far deeper than the waterfall is tall. The constant churning excavates the rock bottom like a drill, carrying away sediment and broken stone, creating pools that seem impossibly deep for their size. Some of these pools have never been fully explored, their depths unknown, their bottoms lost in darkness and swirling currents. There are stories, probably myths but maybe not, of tunnels at the bottom of some plunge pools, underwater passages leading away to underground rivers or other pools. True or not, the stories speak to something real, the sense that waterfalls are gateways, passages between the surface world and something else beneath. Waterfalls can split and rejoin, braiding around islands or temporary obstructions. During different flow conditions, the same waterfall can look completely different, one main channel in low water, 3 or 5 or 7 separate cascades during high flow. Gullfoss in Iceland is famous for this, the Hevita River splitting into multiple channels before plunging in 2 tiers into a dramatic canyon. The waterfall is always Gullfoss, but Gullfoss is never the same, constantly reweaving itself, constantly becoming. You're like this too, aren't you? Always yourself, yet never quite the same person you were yesterday, constantly being rewoven by experience and time and the simple act of living. Some waterfalls glow at sunset with colors that seem impossible. Yosemite's Horsedale Fall, which we mentioned earlier, isn't alone in this phenomenon. Various waterfalls around the world catch the light at specific times, specific angles, and become transformed gold, orange, pink, even purple in the fading light. The water becomes a ribbon of color against dark stone, as if the sun itself was falling, as if light could flow and pour like liquid. These moments last 10 minutes, sometimes less, and then they're gone, the magic fading as the sun drops below the horizon. But tomorrow, if conditions are right, the magic will happen again. Some things you can count on. Some transformations come reliably with the turning of the world. The mist from waterfalls can travel surprisingly far, and where it travels, it changes things. Plants grow more lush. Moss spreads farther. The air stays cooler. In hot climates, the mist zone around a waterfall can be 20 degrees cooler than the surrounding area, creating a refuge for both wildlife and humans. Ancient peoples built shelters within reach of this cooling mist, and modern hikers seek out the same relief from heat. The waterfall reaches out beyond itself through its mist, its influence extending into the landscape, making the world around it more gentle, more green, more alive. Waterfalls have been climbed, or rather, the frozen versions of them have been. Ice climbing is its own discipline, and frozen waterfalls present unique challenges. The ice constantly changing, melting, and refreezing, sections that look solid giving way under weight. The reminder that what seems stable is actually just water in a temporary state. To climb a frozen waterfall is to trust something fundamentally unstable, to ascend toward the source knowing that beneath the ice, water still flows, still waits for warmth to return and melt your climbing route back into falling water. It's beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, a dance with transformation itself. There are waterfalls in cities, not just in parks but integrated into architecture, falling through buildings or alongside them. The waterfall building in Argentina has a waterfall cascading down its facade from the rooftop garden. In Singapore, the rain vortex at Jewel Changi Airport is the world's tallest indoor waterfall at 130 feet, falling through the center of a shopping complex surrounded by terraced gardens. These urban waterfalls bring the sound, the mist, the peace of falling water into human spaces, a recognition that we need waterfalls nearby, that something in us responds to them in ways that glass and steel alone can never satisfy. Even in our most artificial environments, we recreate this most natural of phenomena, calling water to fall near us like calling an old friend home. Your breathing is so slow now, so peaceful, like a distant waterfall heard through forest, barely present, more feeling than sound. The facts are dreams now, the dreams are fading into silence, and the silence is becoming sleep. This is the way. This is the gentle path. The waterfalls will keep falling through the night. They always do. They don't need your awareness, your attention, your thoughts. They fall for themselves because that's what water does when it finds an edge. And you can rest now because that's what you do when you find this edge of consciousness, this cliff between waking and sleep. Let go falling now, soft, soft, gone into dreams. Nearly gone now, nearly dreaming. Let the last facts wash over you like the gentlest rain. Waterfalls can create double rainbows when conditions align perfectly. The sun at the right angle, the mist dense enough, your position precisely placed. Secondary rainbow arcs above the first, fainter but still visible, with its colors reversed. Some waterfalls are so reliable in their rainbow production that photographers plan trips around the time of day and season when the rainbow is guaranteed to appear. Yosemite Falls at certain times displays not just rainbows but moonbows, rainbows created by moonlight rather than sunlight, pale and ghostly, appearing in the mist on full moon nights. Imagine a rainbow made of silver light, a bridge of moonbeams in the spray of a waterfall at midnight. Some wonders only reveal themselves to those who wait in darkness. The oldest known painting of a waterfall dates back thousands of years. In caves in Africa, in rock art throughout Australia, our ancestors painted waterfalls alongside animals and humans and symbols. They saw waterfalls and felt compelled to recreate them, to capture somehow the movement and the power in still images on stone. What drove them to this? Perhaps the same thing that brings you here now, to fall asleep to stories about falling water, some recognition that waterfalls matter, that they touch something in us that needs touching, that they're worth remembering, worth preserving, worth carrying with us into our dreams. Waterfalls can generate electricity, of course, but the scale surprises people. Hydroelectric dams harness falling water to power entire nations. Paraguay generates nearly 100% of its electricity from falling water, primarily from the Itaipu Dam on the Paraná River. The principle is ancient, falling water turning wheels, but the application is modern, the power grid carrying the energy of falling water into homes and hospitals and schools across entire countries. The waterfall, in a sense, becomes infinite. Its single fall repeated through turbines thousands of times per second, the energy extracted and transmitted, but the water continuing its journey to the sea, relatively unchanged. Some waterfalls have caves behind them large enough to hold concerts, ceremonies, entire gatherings of people. The acoustics in these spaces can be remarkable, the constant white noise of the falling water creating a sound-dampening effect that makes voices carry clearly within the cave while remaining inaudible outside. In Iceland, couples sometimes marry in caves behind waterfalls, the ceremony held in this liminal space between rock and water, between the solid and the flowing. What a place to make promises, surrounded by something eternal, something that has been falling since before memory and will fall long after. Waterfalls influence cloud formation in their vicinity. The moisture and cooling effect can trigger convection currents that lead to cloud development directly above large waterfalls. Satellite imagery sometimes shows small clouds hovering persistently over the same spot, marking the location of significant waterfalls. From space, from that vast distance, waterfalls announce themselves through the clouds they birth, visible even when the falls themselves are too small to see. They reach upward through their effects, touching the sky through the mist they create. There are waterfalls that have never been photographed, never been recorded on video, known only through verbal descriptions from the indigenous peoples who live near them, or from explorers who saw them once and never returned. In the age of satellites and drones, this seems impossible, yet the world is larger and wilder than we often remember. Dense jungle canopy hides waterfalls from aerial view. Remote gorges accessible only by difficult river journeys keep their secrets. Some waterfalls remain rumors, stories, possibilities waiting to be confirmed or forgotten. The world still holds its mysteries close. Waterfalls were once thought to be the homes of dragons in various cultures. Chinese, European, and Japanese mythologies all place dragons near waterfalls, guarding the falling water or living in the pools beneath. Perhaps it was the power of waterfalls that suggested something mighty dwelling there. Perhaps it was the mist that seemed like dragon's breath. Or perhaps it was simply that waterfalls were liminal places, thresholds between worlds, and dragons were liminal creatures, and so of course they belong together. The dragons are gone now if they ever existed, but the waterfalls remain, still guarding something, maybe just themselves, maybe the memory of mystery, maybe the possibility that the world is stranger than we know. The velocity of water falling changes at different points in its descent. At the lip of the waterfall, water moves at the speed of the river flow. As it falls, it accelerates due to gravity at 9.8 meters per second squared, reaching terminal velocity if the fall is tall enough, around 120 miles per hour for a falling stream of water. But just before impact, the water begins to slow slightly as it collides with air pushed up by the plunge pool, creating complex turbulence patterns that are still not fully understood by fluid dynamics experts. Even something as simple as water falling is, upon close examination, beautifully complex, full of nuance and subtlety and behavior that emerges only when you look closely, when you pay attention. But you're not paying close attention anymore, are you? The words are washing over you, through you, around you, and you're not holding on to them. You're letting them fall past you like water falls past stone, constant and unconsidered, just there, just happening while you rest in the middle of it all. This is the quietest place. Here between one breath and the next, between one thought and the absence of thought, between the last fact and the dream that's already beginning to form at the edges of your fading consciousness. The waterfalls are still falling. Let them. Let everything continue without you for a while. You've earned this rest, this peace, this soft descent into sleep. Falling quiet soft, sleep now, sleep. Almost there now, almost gone. Just a few more whispers about falling water, then silence, then sleep. Waterfalls change the chemistry of the air around them. Beyond the negative ions we mentioned earlier, the constant turbulence and mixing of water with air creates an environment rich in oxygen, elevated humidity, and altered pH levels in the surrounding atmosphere. Scientists have measured these effects extending hundreds of yards from significant waterfalls. The air itself is different there, cleaner, fresher, charged with something difficult to quantify but easy to feel. When you breathe deeply near a waterfall, you're breathing air that has been transformed by the water's falling, made into something closer to what air was like before cities, before pollution, ancient air recreated continuously by the eternal fall. There are waterfalls on Mars. The planet is dry now, a desert world, but ancient channels and cliff faces show evidence of waterfalls that flowed billions of years ago when Mars had liquid water on its surface. These ghost waterfalls carve the landscape we see in satellite images, channels leading to dramatic drops, plunge pools long since evaporated, the shadows of cascades in stone. They fell under a different sky, these Martian waterfalls, under different stars, and then they stopped, and Mars became silent. But the memory remains in the landscape, proof that water found edges and fell, following the same physics on another world that it follows here on ours. The longest waterfall walk in the world is behind Stirling Falls in New Zealand, where a track has been built allowing visitors to walk completely behind the 500-foot cascade, the falls surrounding you on one side, the cliff face on the other, a corridor of mist and sound. To walk this path is to pass through the waterfall, to exist briefly inside it rather than merely before it. Visitors emerge on the other side changed, not dramatically, not obviously, but in the way anything changes us that puts us completely inside an experience rather than letting us observe from outside. You become part of the waterfall and it becomes part of you, and something about that exchange, that moment of union, stays with you. Waterfalls have been used as natural calendars by some cultures. Certain falls flow strongly at snow melt, marking spring. Others depend on monsoon rains, their flow announcing the changing season. Indigenous peoples throughout history have used these reliable changes as markers in their seasonal rounds: time to plant, time to harvest, time to move to summer grounds. The waterfall's voice changes with its flow, and those who listen carefully can hear the passage of time itself in the shifting roar, in the waxing and waning of water's power. Time made audible, the year made into sound. Some waterfalls create permanent mist clouds that appear stationary, hovering above the falls like a marker, like a flag announcing the waterfall's presence. Victoria Falls mist cloud, as mentioned before, can be seen from miles away. But even smaller falls create their own clouds, visible to those who know to look for them. From a distance, you can find waterfalls by finding their clouds, following the mist markers through valleys and forests to the source. The waterfall calls to you through its cloud, sending a signal into the sky: here is where water falls, here is where mist rises, here is a place worth seeking. The sound of a waterfall has been used in sound therapy and meditation for centuries. Modern sleep apps and white noise machines often feature waterfall sounds because they trigger something primal, a recognition that the sound means water, which means life, which means safety. Our ancestors sought out waterfalls not just for their beauty, but for the resources they provided. To hear falling water was to know that life could be sustained there. That ancient response still lives in us, still quiets our minds, still tells us at a level deeper than thought that we are safe, that we can rest. You're feeling it now, aren't you? That deep permission to let go. Waterfalls continue to form new in the world even now. Glacial retreat due to climate change is revealing new cliff faces, new edges for water to fall over. Earthquakes and landslides create sudden drops in riverbeds. The earth is still active, still shifting, still creating the conditions for waterfalls to be born. Somewhere right now, at this very moment, water is flowing over a new edge for the first time, becoming a waterfall in real time, joining the countless others that have come before. The world is always making more waterfalls, always finding new ways for water to fall. It's a renewable source of wonder. There are waterfalls you have never seen and will never see, in places you'll never visit, falling in languages you don't speak, in countries you may never travel to. And yet they fall for you anyway. Not literally, not consciously, but in the sense that their falling adds to the sum total of beauty in the world, contributes to the grand pattern of water seeking the sea, participating in the cycle that makes life possible. Every waterfall, known or unknown, photographed or hidden, famous or secret, is falling right now. And somehow, impossibly, that matters. Somehow knowing that waterfalls are falling while you sleep makes the world feel more right, more complete, more like home. Still here, still drifting. Let's wander together a little longer through the mist. Waterfalls can split light into its component colors without creating a traditional rainbow. The phenomenon called iridescence occurs when light waves interfere with each other in the mist, creating shimmering patches of color that shift and move, never quite forming the arc of a rainbow but painting the air with fleeting colors nonetheless. These ghost colors appear and disappear in the spray, blue becoming green, becoming gold, then vanishing, then reappearing somewhere else. Like thoughts before sleep, these colors refuse to be pinned down, refuse to stay still, content to exist only as movement, only as change. The deepest plunge pool ever measured is at the base of Snoqualmie Falls in Washington, over 200 feet deep, carved over thousands of years by the constant percussion of falling water. That depth exists in near total darkness at the bottom, the churning water above blocking most light from penetrating. Fish that live in these deep plunge pools have adapted to the darkness and the constant turbulence, their entire existence spent in this strange environment of perpetual motion and limited light. They were born there, will live there, will die there, never knowing stillness, never knowing the quiet surface of a calm lake. Yet they thrive, proof that even chaos can become home if it's all you've ever known. Waterfalls can create standing waves in their plunge pools, waves that appear motionless, frozen in place despite the water constantly moving through them. These hydraulic features, also called holes or keepers by kayakers, form when the flow dynamics create a stable pattern that persists even as individual water molecules flow through and continue downstream. To see a wave standing still while everything flows is to witness one of water's paradoxes, permanence and impermanence existing simultaneously, the pattern eternal even as the substance constantly changes. You are like this too, the essential pattern of you remaining constant even as every cell in your body gradually replaces itself over time. Some waterfalls reverse their mist patterns at night. When the air cools after sunset, the temperature gradient shifts and mist that rose during the day begins to sink, creating a ghost waterfall of descending mist beside the real waterfall of falling water. Two falls exist side by side, one of water, one of vapor, one always there, one appearing only when darkness and coolness align. Night reveals different truths than day. Darkness shows you things the light keeps hidden. Waterfalls have been used as natural refrigerators by various cultures throughout history. Behind the falls, in the cool mist zone, temperatures stay low enough to preserve food even in summer. In Norway and Iceland, farmers built small stone structures behind waterfalls specifically for food storage, the constant cool mist and low temperature keeping meat and dairy fresh for weeks. The waterfall becomes a provider not just of water but of preservation, of the ability to keep things from decay, to slow time's passage at least a little, to hold onto abundance through scarcity. The oldest continuously operating waterfall-powered mill in the world is in England, Otterton Mill in Devon, which has been using waterfall power to grind grain for over 1,000 years. The current building dates to 1068, built shortly after the Norman conquest, but a mill has stood on that spot since at least Saxon times. The same water that turned the wheel then turns it now, the same cliff edge channeling the same stream, and flour is still ground by falling water just as it was when the mill was new. Some things endure. Some patterns repeat so reliably they become almost eternal. Waterfalls can create their own lightning. The charged mist particles generated by falling water can build up electrical potential, and during thunderstorms, waterfalls can become focal points for lightning strikes. Victoria Falls and Iguazu Falls both experience this phenomenon, lightning attracted to the electrically charged mist clouds, striking near or sometimes directly into the waterfall itself. To witness a waterfall struck by lightning is to see nature's power amplified, water and electricity dancing together, two fundamental forces meeting in spectacular collision. Some waterfalls flow underground before emerging into daylight. The Ruby Falls in Tennessee flows through Lookout Mountain Cavern, a 145-foot underground waterfall that was hidden for millions of years before being discovered in 1928. Visitors descend through the cave system until they reach a cathedral-like chamber where the falls emerge from a crevice in the ceiling and plunge into a pool below, all of it happening in the heart of a mountain, all of it existing in darkness until someone brings light. How many other waterfalls flow in darkness still, unknown, unvisited, falling through the planet's secret places? Waterfalls have their own classification system for the shape of the falling water itself. Segmented falls divide into separate streams. Tiered falls descend in distinct steps. Punchbowl falls maintain contact with bedrock as they descend into a pool. Each classification tells you something about the geology, the water volume, the age of the falls. Like fingerprints, no two waterfalls are exactly alike, even when they fit the same category. Each one is specific, unique, itself, and nothing else. The sound frequency of waterfalls falls primarily in the range of 20 to 20,000 Hz, the exact range of human hearing. This isn't coincidence but physics. These are the frequencies that water, falling and splashing, naturally produces. But it means that waterfalls were designed by nature to be heard by creatures like us, that we evolved in a world where falling water made sounds we could perceive, that the waterfall's song and our ability to hear it emerged together, shaped by the same world, the same physics, the same long story of water and stone and life finding ways to exist together. Your breathing matches the rhythm now, in and out like water over stone, smooth and slow and easy. You don't need to hold on to these facts anymore. Let them flow past you. Let them fall away into the dark. The waterfalls are still falling. They'll fall all night. They'll fall while you dream, and that's perfect. That's exactly right. And so we've reached the end of our journey together. 100 facts about waterfalls, woven into stories, dissolved into dreams. You've fallen with me through this cascade of information, and now you've reached the pool at the bottom, the quiet place, the still place where the churning stops and peace begins. The waterfalls will keep falling through the night. They don't need you. They don't need anyone. They fall because gravity calls them, because the earth is shaped in such a way that water must fall, because that's what water does. And you will keep breathing through the night, keep dreaming, keep existing in that state of rest that your body needs, that your mind craves. You don't need to think anymore. You don't need to remember. You don't need to do anything but let go completely now. The stories are over. The facts have all been told. There's nothing left but the soft, infinite darkness of sleep welcoming you home. Rest now, fall softly into dreams. Let the world continue without you. You are safe, you are peaceful, you are falling gently into sleep. Like water, like mist, like nothing at all. Rest deeper now, softer, quieter, gone. Sleep, sleep, sleep.